This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, and faith-focused feature stories with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
March Madness, and we're not talking basketball. Good afternoon. We've got some wacky weather to start the work week. Already damaging winds have knocked out power to thousands across New York and Pennsylvania. This Western New Yorker says she's not looking forward to what's coming tomorrow.
Middle of March almost, so I feel like we probably shouldn't be dealing with this right now.
Temperatures will drop like a rock tonight, and rain flips to snow tomorrow, St. Patrick's Day. For those of you keeping score at home, spring officially arrives on Friday. Blizzard-like conditions pummeling the Midwest and Great Lakes states. Reporter Ian Lee in hard-hit Green Bay, Wisconsin.
This life-threatening blizzard is bringing nearly 3 feet of snow and wind gusts up to 50 miles an hour around the Great Lakes, creating dangerous whiteout conditions.
Fox Weather meteorologist Jay Menard is more from Traverse City, Michigan.
As we go throughout the day today, we are expecting more snow, and this wind, it hurts.
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz issued a no-travel advisory and has authorized the National Guard to be on standby for rescues. In the Middle East, the war with Iran rages on. CBS's Charlie Daggett.
The U.S. and Israel's bombing campaign across Iran shows no sign of slowing. Explosions across Lebanon, too, in Israel's other war against Iran's proxy Hezbollah.
Overnight, Israeli Defense Forces struck over 200 targets in western and central Iran. Fox's Mike Tobin.
The targets they claim they hit so far are command and control structures for the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, weapons storage, and Israel claims they had a launch cell for attack drones. Now, despite the pounding that Iran has taken and the elimination of top leaders in the government, the regime has not toppled.
Thousands more American troops are now headed to the Middle East, including roughly 2,200 U.S. Marines. Experts say they are trained for the kind of fighting that cannot be done from the air. President Trump expected to announce soon an international coalition to help escort commercial shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has effectively choked it off, causing somewhat of an energy crisis. Former Navy SEAL Mike Sorelli.
The Strait of Hormuz is Iran's gun to the global economy's head. That's what their playbook has always been.
Former White House energy advisor Bob McNally.
Escorts are a sideshow. Strategic stock releases are a sideshow. Gas tax holiday, sideshow. You got to restore the flow of the Strait of Hormuz.
As Operation Epic Fury enters its third week, fuel costs continue to skyrocket. The price at the pump's risen nearly 80 cents a gallon since the start of the war.
It is a short-term disruption in the flow of energy. Americans are feeling it right now. Americans will feel it for a few more weeks.
Energy Secretary Chris Wright.
But at the end, we will have removed the greatest risk to global energy supplies. We'll go to a world more abundant in energy, more affordable in energy, and less risky for American soldiers and commerce in the Middle East.
President Trump warns NATO states face a very bad future if they do not help reopen the Strait of Hormuz. We're learning more today about the man who attacked a Jewish synagogue in Michigan last week. 41-year-old Ayman Mohammed Ghazali was the brother of a Hezbollah commander who was killed along with other family members during an Israeli airstrike on Lebanon earlier this month. Ghazali was shot dead by security after ramming his bomb-rigged truck into that Jewish house of worship near Detroit last Thursday. A political thriller was the big winner at the 98th Annual Academy Awards show last night in Los Angeles.
The Oscar goes to One Battle After Another.
The Paul Thomas Anderson flick picked up 6 Oscars, including Best Picture and Best Director. Michael B. Jordan won for Best Actor.
Oh, man, y'all. God is good.
Jessie Buckley won Best Actress for her role as William Shakespeare's wife in Hamnet. She is the first Irish actress to ever receive that honor. Duke, Arizona, Michigan, and Florida, your top seeds in this year's March Madness College Basketball Tournament.
Loser has to chase that. They'll step back and fire. Yes.
The Mountain Hawks of Lehigh University and the Siena University Saints are the teams of local interest in this year's men's tournament. Siena coach and Syracuse alum Gary McNamara.
I think regardless of what situation we were going to be in this tournament, we would be considered an underdog. If you look around college basketball, look at those number 1 and number 2 seeds right now. These are high-level groups. I told our team today before we started practice, I said, listen, before this thing starts, I want you to know whatever name is called against us, it's going to be a monster.
Yeah, Siena gets to play Duke first. Speaking of monsters, the action tips off tomorrow night in Dayton, Ohio for the first 4. The odds of filling out a perfect bracket, by the way, about 1 in 9 quintillion. Team USA moving on in the World Baseball Classic. They beat the Dominican Republic last night 2-1 to advance to the championship game tomorrow night in Miami.
That was high-level baseball at its finest. I mean, for our bullpen to come in and do the job they did, Dominican never stopped. It was like constant traffic. Never relaxed. Just a game we'll remember forever, right?
Yeah, it was a great game. Team USA manager Mark DeRosa.
We want to win the whole thing. I mean, that's why we signed up for this. So certainly huge moment. Can't overlook it. I'm blessed to be a part of it. I'm blessed to manage these guys. I've had an absolute blast. But yeah, job's not done.
Not done yet. For sure, the Americans take on either undefeated Italy or Venezuela in the World Baseball Classic finale tomorrow. More on the game last night from Randy in sports. Also ahead on today's noon report, Buffalo braces for college basketball, New York burn ban in effect, and Shapiro rakes in the campaign cash.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams. A very active weather day in our region as a powerful cold front slices through the area with rain, thunder, wind, snow, and plummeting temperatures ultimately. Forecast details, they're up in 10.
All right, Kevin, you'll definitely want to stay skywise. As Kev likes to say today, a line of thunderstorms moving west to east could cause power outages and property damage. That's how strong they will be. Temperatures will drop into the teens and 20s tonight. That could trigger flash freezing and cause some icing issues as well. It's crunch time in Albany as the state legislature and Governor Hochul debate the fine points of a more than $260 billion state budget proposal. Democratic State Senator Jeremy Cooney thinks the upstate is getting shortchanged so New York can bail out the Big Apple.
Look, we want our neighbors and our friends in New York City to get what they need, but we also need to make sure our residents get their fair share.
The budget's due April 1st. March Madness is big business for Buffalo, New York. The men's NCAA college basketball tourney returning to the Queen City this week for the first time in 4 years. Local officials say putting their best foot forward, so to speak, is crucial to securing future tournament bids.
Those first impressions are really important, and that allows us to be able to be successful, not only in how the community supports the event from a ticket buying standpoint, but how we rally to make sure that everyone who comes here has a great experience.
The tournament is an $8 million economic juggernaut for the city of Buffalo. Nearly 20,000 out-of-towners will descend on the Queen City. The first game tips off Thursday afternoon at KeyBank Center. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro enjoys a 15-1 fundraising advantage over his Republican opponent in this year's midterm election. The Democratic incumbent hopes to raise $100 million for the 2026 gubernatorial race against state treasurer and Athens, PA native Stacey Garrity. Most of Shapiro's money, by the way, is coming from out of state, as political pundits predict he's interested in campaigning for president in 2028. Governor Shapiro's taking issue with the way the Trump administration is waging war in Iran.
I think if you don't have clarity on why you're going in, you have no way of knowing how to get out.
The first-term Democrat telling talk show host Bill Maher
was the plan to go after the nuclear weapons. The weapons, by the way, he said were destroyed 7 months ago, pardon me. Was the plan to go and do regime change, in which case, who's going to take over? I don't think the sun's any better than the father.
President Trump says Operation Epic Fury is operating ahead of schedule, and he says Iran wants to make a deal to end the fighting. Brighton, New York Police Chief David Cathaldi is weighing in on a proposed 25-foot buffer zone to protect houses of worship all across New York.
I can tell you that there's a lot of fear, and when people feel afraid to go to worship, that's a concern. That should concern everybody, irrespective of what religion you practice.
The chief tells WROC that Brighton has a large percentage of residents who adhere to both the Jewish and Islamic faiths.
We have had threats in this community, and we have made arrests for disrupting religious services here in this community before. And it's part of my job to make sure that people can worship in peace. I think if there can be clear distinctions of what people can and cannot do, it keeps both sides honest and there's no miscommunication. So I think it can be a good thing.
Violators of the buffer zone could face up to a year behind bars if it's approved by the state legislature. New York's statewide burn ban took effect today and will remain in effect through mid-May. DEC Commissioner Amanda Lefton.
Outdoor debris is actually the single largest cause of wildfires in New York State during springtime.
The burn ban's been in place for nearly 20 years now in New York.
This burn ban, when it was first put into place, actually saw a 40% reduction in wildland fires that are happening.
DEC Fire Coordinator Scott Jackson says the state fought 200 fires last year, and each one was uniquely challenging.
You're dealing with something that's moving through the landscape rather than fixed in one location. You also have risks to threaten structures and private property. And then you have the hazards of falling trees.
Lefton says the burn ban isn't a total ban.
You can still have a small fire, a small campfire that's no higher than 3 feet, no wider than 4 feet. You can still have a small contained cooking area, but you shouldn't have any fire that's left unattended.
Fines for violating the burn ban range from a few $100s up to $18,000 per violation in New York State. We've got sports next. It's the 2-minute drill on the Family Life Noon Report.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, we start with baseball. At the World Baseball Classic, two powerhouses squared off against one another in the semifinals. The two teams came into the game averaging 18 runs scored between them. But, of course, last night, pitching dominated. Only 3 runs were scored, and fortunately for the United States, they scored 2 of them on solo home runs from Gunnar Henderson and Roman Anthony. The Dominican Republic's run also came on a blast from Junior Caminero. So Team USA into the finals. They will face either Italy or Venezuela. To the NBA. Jalen Brunson scored 30 points, including shooting 10 for 10 on the foul line. And the Knicks won their third in a row, 110-107 against Golden State. In Philadelphia, Quentin Grimes scored a season-high 31 points, and the shorthanded 76ers pulled out a 109-103 win against Portland. Philly was playing without Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and Kelly Oubre Jr. Justin Edwards added 21 points, and VJ Edgecombe had 18 with a career-high 12 rebounds. Also picking up victories, the Thunder, Mavs, Raptors, Bucks, and Kings. On the ice, skating to wins, the Jets, Senators, Ducks, Maple Leafs, Oilers, and Kraken. To NASCAR, Denny Hamlin held off Chase Elliott by half a second and took the checkered flag in Las Vegas. Will Byron, Chris Bell, and Ty Gibbs rounded out the top 5. And finally it is time for March Madness. The brackets have been set. Overall top seeds are Duke, Arizona, Michigan, and Florida. That is a look at sports.
All right, thank you, Randy. Still to come on the Noon Report. Americans aren't going to the movies as much. Issues in education with Dr. Ralph Kerr and some wintry weather on the way. Kev's got that work week forecast right after this.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stone Street. According to an article by Patrick West in The Spectator, many young people find Jesus, well, annoying. West pointed to a survey of UK teens aged 14 to 17 that was entitled Troubling Jesus. This joint project of the Scripture Union and the Bible Society sought to understand how non-Christian kids thought about Scripture. According to the study's authors, and I quote here, what they shared was sometimes deeply uncomfortable, unsettling interpretations we may be overly familiar with, and offering fresh perspectives on God and Jesus that can sound almost heretical at first, end quote. And not just at first. These students had the impressions that the God of the Bible was really violent and aggressive, that he practiced mansplaining and had an unequal power dynamic. God the Father came across to these young people as a bully. God the Son was, and I quote, arrogant, powerful, religiously motivated, and male. The most telling claim was that Jesus had a God complex. Now, of course, they meant it as an insult, but they're not wrong. Jesus did act like God. He talked as if every person's eternal destiny depended on him. Remember, he said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. He affirmed the formerly doubting Thomas when he called Jesus my Lord and my God. Jesus himself regularly used the phrase I am about himself, often in unusual ways, most notably, as John 8 reported, that he said before Abraham was, I am. And his opponents immediately took this as blasphemy in reference to God's self-disclosure to Moses at the burning bush. Christ also identified himself as just being a greater fulfillment of all the Old Testament events. Like Moses, he provided food for the people in the wilderness. He brought the law down from the mountain. He was the living water. Like Elijah and Elisha, he raised a mother's son from the dead. And he said and did these things as if he had the power and authority himself. Unlike the older prophets, Jesus didn't say, thus saith the Lord. He spoke with his own authority, saying, truly, truly, I say to you. And they knew what he was doing. After all, Christ was not killed because he was a nice guy or because he stood up for the poor. He was killed because the powers that be found him dangerous. He wasn't the Messiah they were looking for. They rejected him. So ironically, even in all their ignorance, these UK teens recognized a truth of Scripture. Even more ironically, it's a truth of Scripture that the Church of England has too often downplayed and downright rejected, that Jesus was indeed God. And it is better, I think, at the end of the day, to be offended by Jesus than to try to remake him into something he was not. As C.S. Lewis famously put it in Mere Christianity, you can shut Jesus up for a fool, you can spit at him and kill him as a demon, or you can fall at his feet and call him Lord and God. But let us not come with this patronizing nonsense about him being a great human teacher. He's not left that open to us. He never intended to. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint. Today's Breakpoint was co-authored by Dr. Timothy Paget, and to download and share this commentary with others, go to colsoncenter.org/radio.
Thank you, John. Outside we go, Kevin Williams.
Here is your family life forecast. After temperatures soar into the 60s, they'll tumble into the 30s late today and this evening. And blustery, much colder tonight. The rain changes to snow, and most folks will have the ground coated by morning as the temperature tumbles toward 20. Wind chills by daybreak tomorrow near 0. Tomorrow, very cold and windy. There are clouds, flurries, areas of flake snow. High temperatures tomorrow in the 20s.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. I think first day of spring this Friday. Amazing. This is the Noon Report on Family Life. I'm your host, Bob Price. As Kevin just mentioned, Old Man Winter is knocking on our door. Delivered a knockout punch yesterday to the upper Midwest and Great Lakes states. Reporter Ian Lee in hard-hit Green Bay, Wisconsin, which got hammered by a blizzard yesterday.
The wind is blowing so hard, it feels like sand hitting my face. A city official here in Green Bay told us this is a once-in-a-decade storm, creating chaos at airports across the region with hundreds of flights canceled and treacherous traveling on the roads.
Green Bay saw more snow yesterday than on any day since 1889. That storm system now moving east toward us. Wind warnings and watches in effect through tonight. And later on, we'll see that rain flip to snow as the cold front swoops in and drops our temperatures by 30 degrees or more by tomorrow. Gas prices have risen almost 80 cents a gallon since the start of the war with Iran. NBC's Garrett Hake.
For most Americans, those rising prices at the pump are the most tangible daily signs of our nation at war. Overnight, President Trump telling reporters they will come down quickly when the fighting is over. But the president also said he's not yet ready to end that fighting or strike a deal with what's left of Iran's leadership to end the war, now entering its third week.
The president warns NATO states face a very bad future if they don't help reopen reopen the Strait of Hormuz in the Middle East. That strategic body of water has been choked off by Iran. Matt Whitaker is the U.S. ambassador to NATO.
This is about other countries, including China, including our NATO allies, that receive oil and gas from the Gulf. And ultimately, that security of the Strait of Hormuz is in their interest.
20% of the world's oil supply passes through the Strait of Hormuz every day, or it did before the war started 17 days ago. The CEOs of some of the largest airlines in the country have signed a letter to Congress. They're urging lawmakers to fund the TSA during the partial government shutdown. Passengers are running into long security lines as airport screeners call in sick or even quit. Reporter Tim McNicholas is at Newark Airport.
More than 300 TSA officers have resigned since the partial shutdown started, and unscheduled absences have doubled, according to the federal government. Get these guys paid. Chris Sununu is the CEO of Airlines for America, the trade group that represents the airlines, urging Congress to act.
Please pay these employees, have your political fights on the side, but don't drag down the entire traveling American public because of it.
A union representative for 45,000 TSA workers says some TSA officers are picking up second jobs or even selling plasma to make ends meet.
That's Tim McNicholas at Newark Airport today in New Jersey. Good news when it comes to cigarette smoking. The rate of smoking has dipped in this country to below 10%. It's the first time ever it's been in single digits. Fox News medical contributor Dr. Mark Siegel.
1/3 of all cancers is directly related to cigarette smoking. And the reason we haven't yet seen a huge decline in lung cancer, 90% of which is due to cigarette smoking, is because this decline is recent. We got under 10%. We're trying to get to 6%. So a lot of the lung cancers are from people that were smoking for decades and now maybe have stopped.
Since 1965, the smoking rate in this country has declined 73%. However, rates of vaping have gone in the other direction, and so too has marijuana use. New research is challenging assumptions about rising heart attack risks as we age.
Think about who's at risk from heart disease, and you'll likely picture an overweight, out-of-shape man in late middle age. But a 30-year study suggests that men start developing cardiovascular disease years earlier than women, with that risk starting to rise by their mid-30s.
Correspondent Vicky Barker, as Hollywood honored its own at the Oscars last night, a new poll shows fewer Americans than ever are going to the movies. Just a tad more than half of us, U.S., actually saw a movie in a movie theater last year. According to the Pew Research Center, 18 to 29-year-olds are the most likely age group to attend a movie at a movie theater. Those over 65 are the least likely. Ticket sales in this country have dropped by a whopping $430 million since 2002. We'll get your brackets ready. It is time for the madness, folks. The Division I NCAA men's college basketball tournament is nearly here. Reporter Erica Hershkowitz.
Player of the Year favorite Cameron Boozer and the Duke Blue Devils earned the top overall seed in this year's men's NCAA tournament. They'll lead the East region and be joined in the top four by Arizona in the West, Michigan in the Midwest, and defending national champion Florida in the South. As for teams on the bubble, Miami of Ohio and Santa Clara are going dancing, but Auburn and Oklahoma are not. The madness begins with the first four on Tuesday and Wednesday.
March Madness will culminate with the Final Four in Indianapolis Saturday, April 4th. The championship game is Monday night, April 6th. The odds of filling out a perfect bracket, we're told, is about 1 in 9 quintillion. Good luck. The United States will play for the title tomorrow night in the World Baseball Classic. Here's reporter Rory O'Neill.
Team USA beat the Dominican Republic 2-1 in the semifinals to advance, but some fans are crying foul over the last pitch that ended the game. Team USA reliever Mason Miller's slider on a full count at the bottom of the ninth looked to be low, but it was called a strike, giving Team USA the win. The U.S. will now face either Venezuela or Italy in the championship game Tuesday after those two teams play it out today. I'm Rory O'Neill.
Thank you, Rory. You're listening to the Noon Report, a Monday edition on Family Life. This is Issues in Education, Mondays during the Noon Report, we spotlight the issues impacting our schools with Dr. Ralph Kerr at the Teaching and Learning Institute in Houghton, New York. Ralph, remember last week how we were talking about it almost being springtime, the birds were chirping. Well, I take all that back. Spring.
Yeah, you better.
Just going to cancel spring this year. But, hey, we got a lot to discuss, a lot on our plate. I want to begin with NYSA, New York State United Teachers, the largest teachers union in New York, pushing for more money in the state budget this year for community schools. What are community schools, Ralph, and do you support this funding request?
Well, community schools are really designed to bring the school and its day programs to things that happen after school or in the evening that are combined with community agencies. It sounds like a good thing, but I've experienced this in one of the districts where I was, and I can tell you that one of the problems is in this particular district, the community school has been around for so long that when I came and tried to make some changes, they didn't want any part of it. It was like this was a kingdom of their own. They just were very difficult to work with. So wherever there's a community school, there needs to be an understanding that the superintendent at the school is responsible for the community school, and if they would like to have some changes in programming, then they need to be responsive to that.
Yeah.
In terms of NYSA asking for $100,000 in the budget, really they're looking for more members. I would support that kind of money in a budget that should be going to the education of the K-12 children, and it's unfortunate that NYSA's sticking its nose in this particular item.
All right. Dwindling enrollment in 3 schools in western New York, out where you are, Ralph, these are in Chautauqua County, has these schools talking about a merger. This is Clymer, Panama, and Sherman. Have we seen the rate of school mergers increase in recent years, Ralph? And are you a supporter of these sorts of consolidations?
Well, certainly early in the 20th century, there were a lot of mergers. In 1920, for instance, there were 10,000 school districts in the state of New York. In 2026, there are about 700. But the 10-year span between 1990 and 2000, there were only 16 mergers. So this is a really hard nut to crack.
Yeah.
I am a supporter, and as I told you before, my wife is going to be on my case when she hears this broadcast because she doesn't support mergers at all because she likes the fact that schools should have elementary schools in their town, not somewhere else. But in the case you've described, there's a little bit over 1,000 students in all 3 of these districts. The advantages obviously to merging, the state puts in a ton of money, can be up to 90% of your operating budget. Tax savings are huge under any merger. But the biggest concern, what's the school mascot going to be? I went through a merger when I was in a district before I retired, and I'll tell you, the first question was, well, what's the mascot going to be?
Unreal. I'm a product of a school merger. It seemed to work okay. There was some growing pains, as there always are. But the mascot, that's funny. And I can't believe there was a time in New York where there were 10,000 school districts.
Yes.
Unreal. Hey, finally, a big Supreme Court decision. We wanted to get your thoughts on this. This came down recently. 6-3, I think, was the ruling that California schools can no longer hide from parents gender issues that are discussed at school with children. Do you support what the Supreme Court did here, and is this a problem at all in New York or Pennsylvania?
Well, the answer to your first question is I absolutely support the U.S. Supreme Court's decision in this. It's really a question of parental rights versus student privacy and safety. Now, interesting, between New York and Pennsylvania, there's very different rules. In 2019, New York put out a policy where students need to be respected in terms of the gender they prefer to identify with, and that schools are not to disclose to parents what their preferences are, either in terms of names or pronouns. They also have full access to bathrooms, and their school records need to reflect their gender preference. Obviously, there have been a lot of political and legal disputes over this, but that's what the current rules are in New York. In Pennsylvania, there there's no single statewide mandate on this. So the policies are really set by the local districts. And my guess would be that if you look at the big cities, they probably would be doing what schools are doing in New York. If you look at the rural schools, I would doubt that there's much confusion about whether we're going to support parental rights or have students do things at school, and the school is not allowed to share with the parents.
Yeah, all right. We'll keep our eye on that. I know it affects a lot of people across this country, and if folks have questions about any of the topics discussed today on the program, Ralph, or they simply want to learn more about the Teaching and Learning Institute in Houghton, New York, you have a wonderful website. Ralph, where can folks find you online?
Thank you, Bob. They can simply go to yrun.org, yrun.org.
Issues in Education, the name of the program, comes your way every Monday during the Noon Report or online anytime at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and FamilyLife.org.
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. A powerful storm over Lake Huron will send a cold front surging through the region today. With it, some rather dramatic changes in our weather. Here are the details for this afternoon. Cloudy with strong winds, showers, locally strong to severe thunderstorms, and the rain changing to snow in parts of western New York and northwest Pennsylvania. After temperatures soar into the 60s, they'll tumble into the 30s late today and this evening. And blustery and much colder tonight. The rain changes to snow, and most folks will have the ground coated by morning as the temperature tumbles toward 20. Wind chills by daybreak tomorrow near 0. Tomorrow, very cold and windy. There are clouds, flurries, areas of lake snow. High temperatures tomorrow in the 20s.
All right, people, get ready. Here it comes. And finally at noon, it's one of the world's great mysteries. And now we know why cats always seem to land on their feet. Correspondent Heather Bosch.
They fall, but somehow end up on their paws. Why? Researchers at Japan's Yamaguchi University found the upper part of a cat's spine is extremely flexible, while the lower part is heavier. This suggests cats can quickly turn the upper part of their torso to face the ground, and the rest of the body follows, according to the New York Times. Basically, cats can twist their spines like humans twist their necks.
All right, Heather Bosch reporting, and now you know there's nowhere we won't go to find out the stuff you want answers to on this program. Why cats always land on their feet. And that's our world, the world we live in. Monday, the 16th of March. I'm Bob Price. Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.